Big question, did Costa Rica mandate the COVID vaccine? Now we're going to get into detail on this because there's been a lot of people asking, hey Alan, what do you think? Do you think Costa Rica are going to force the tourists to be vaccinated? And I've been saying all along, I don't think that's going to happen. But there's been some amazing developments occur that's making me begin to have some second thoughts. But hey, we're going to talk about all that and more right after this message. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Yeah, here you go. When I was 20 years old, I decided that I would serve my country, and I did that by joining the United States Marine Corps. And there was a lot of personal reasons as to why I did that. But when I joined, I knew full well that while serving at the Gulf War, I might have to make the ultimate sacrifice and lose my life for my country. But in doing so, I was fighting to protect our freedoms. And one of those freedoms is the freedom of choice. You know, the right to be able to choose to become whoever I want to become, to do whatever I want to do.
Hey. Don't ever let somebody tell you you can't do something. Not even me. All right?
All right.
So long as, my choices don't affect other people's rights to believe, to choose, to do what they want to do. I enjoy the fact that, I can work hard and I can become whoever I want to become. I enjoy sitting down and smoking a good cigar with a glass of brandy. While I don't do it often, I enjoy being able to do that in the comfort of my home. However, the United States did a big thing years ago that banned smoking in public places, and obviously it made sense because my choice to smoke a cigar around other people who chose not to, that would affect their right to breathe healthy, clean air. And I can respect that right. Well, I hardly smoke today, but there's still lots of people who choose to smoke. And you know what? That's their choice. Whenever I chose to join the Marine Corps, a lot of my family did not like that decision. And some of them outright said that was a stupid choice. Well, while that seems kind of rude and crude, that was my choice, and I'll never regret that I spent that time serving my country. And to this day, lots of people have thanked me for my service because we did fight a tough war. So I'm thankful that we have the freedom to choose to be who we want to be and make choices so long as we're not affecting other people's rights to enjoy life as well.
You got a dream, you got to protect it. People can't do something themselves. They want to tell you you can't do it. You want something, go get it. Period.
The question, did Costa Rica mandate some vaccines? Okay, this is a yes and no question, okay? Yes, Costa Rica did mandate some COVID vaccines, but don't stop there and start crying and spreading rumors and noise. You gotta watch to the end of the video so that you can find out, the mandate is really only for a small group of people. Now, at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my opinion on what I think Costa Rica is going to do. And is this going to affect the tourism? Is it going to affect the gringos or the foreigners that Costa Rica has been working so hard to entice to come to Costa Rica? So we're going to talk about a lot in this breaking news story. So let's dig in and let me just give you some facts that I'm finding out from my news sources. Now, I've got to say that sometimes these news sources or some of these facts contradict one another. But let's take a quick look. So first off, yesterday, or in case you're watching the recording, on September the 28th of 2021, the authorities in Costa Rica did announce that all state workers, and we're talking about public sector officials, will need to be vaccinated against COVID-19. Now, they do have a deadline, and I think that deadline is sometime in October. I don't have the exact deadline, but they are saying that, hey, state workers, public sector officials, you're going to have to be vaccinated. Now, that means that that's going to affect 325,000 public sector workers, according to a report that was done in 2019. This makes Costa Rica one of the first Latin American countries to impose a vaccination mandate for the coronavirus. Kind of makes you wonder here, but I think I have some good news, so don't tune out. Before we go any further, it's important to note that Costa Rica is administering the Pfizer and the AstraZeneca vaccines. So those are the two that they're administering, and they're saying, hey, and I think there's others that they will recognize as okay for tourists. That's on another topic. But Costa Rica is administering the Pfizer and AstraZeneca vaccines. Now, what you didn't hear about is prior to this mandate. Remember, this mandate is really about public sector officials, state workers. But prior to this mandate, previously Costa Rica had mandated the coronavirus vaccine for health ministry workers, Costa Rican Social Security Fund employees, the Red Cross, well, really anyone who worked in patient care, okay? Hey, that kind of makes sense, right? They want them to be vaccinated, make sure they're safe, they're taking care of all these people that are sick. Now, the health ministry also said this. In the private sector, private companies across the country will be able to, if they choose, to mandate the vaccine for their employees. Now, they did not give any kind of deadline for those employees to comply, and they did state that, hey, it will be the employer's responsibility to enforce this if the employer chooses to mandate vaccines for their employees, okay? So that brings me to the question, well, why is it? Why is Costa Rica all of a sudden now making this coronavirus mandate? Why? Well, here's what they're stating, okay? The commission has made this decision based on variables like, well, the number of COVID-19 cases. Now, I'm going to pause right there because all in all, I've got to just give Costa Rica a big hand clap because really, in my opinion, when you compare them with all these other countries, Costa Rica really, 2 thumbs up, has done a great job in what they've had to do because all in all, as far as all of the numbers go, Costa Rica's numbers weren't really up there. They really did a good job, and I think their numbers were low in comparison to all of the other countries. So I think they did a really good job. But they're stating that the COVID-19 numbers increased, okay? They're also stating that the mortality rate of the disease and the increased circulation of the Delta variant. I don't know. It's kind of like the flu. You're going to have variants and variants and variants. So is there going to be a constant variant? I don't know, okay? But that just kind of makes me wonder. And they also state the high hospital occupancy. And, there's been a lot of complaints. The high hospital occupancy, they do have good hospitals. They're just not set up to take care of all of this. And so people end up in the hospital. I know one guy who was much older, had some health risk, had some heart issues. He was vaccinated, already vaccinated, yet he got COVID, ended up in the hospital for over a month. He got a little better, but they had to push him out in order to make room for other people. They simply just don't have enough hospitals to take care of. And I don't think it's that many. It's a small country, a country of about 5 million people, and they just can't handle the few numbers that are sick, okay? And I'm guessing it's probably because they just don't have nearly as many hospitals as, other countries, okay? But here's what's important, okay? That was some of the variables that they cited, but the one that kind of stood out to me is what I think is probably most important. One reason they cited as for the mandate is the commission also considered as one of the reasons for the mandate the slowdown in vaccination rates. Obviously, Costa Rica, like many countries, are really pushing. They want to have herd immunization. They want everybody to be vaccinated, okay? And they believe that would be good for everyone. Well, they're seeing a decline. Well, just like in any country, there's a lot of Costa Ricans that simply do not want to be vaccinated. And as you know, hey, I'm a big proponent on freedom of choice. Hey, if you want it, great. If you don't want it, great, okay? And there's a lot of people here in Costa Rica simply do not want it. So because there's a slowdown in vaccination rates, let's mandate to force people to get the vaccination. Now, what are they going to do for those people that decide not to? I don't know. But let's go on, okay? So that now leads to, if there's a slowdown and then there's been a mandate, tell me just how many of the 5 million people in Costa Rica have actually been vaccinated? Well, here's your answer. According to one news source, this is what they said. Of Costa Rica's approximate 5 million people, well, approximately 40% of the population has been fully vaccinated. That's 40%. Stating that almost 30% of Costa Ricans have not received even a single shot. So, that other percentage in there, some got their first shot, hadn't got the second shot. Keep in mind that the two vaccinations or the vaccines that are given, both of them require 2 shots, okay? Now, another news source said, Costa Rica has administered nearly 5.6 million COVID-19 vaccines. Wait a minute. That seems a little misleading when Costa Rica only has about 5 million. How is it that they have given 5.6 million vaccines? Well, when you dig a little deeper, this is what Costa Rica says. The official tracker shows that 5.6 million vaccines have been administered in Costa Rica, and that comprises of 3.4 million first doses and 2.2 million second doses. Okay, you fooled me there. Anyway, it still leads to about only 40% of the population that's been fully vaccinated. Even though Costa Rica had a prior mandate for people that were taking care of the sick in the health industry, the University of Costa Rica, the country's biggest university, has also announced a vaccination mandate. So I don't know how that's going to affect a whole bunch of college kids who choose not to be vaccinated. But it's important to note that, hey, we can see what's happening in Costa Rica. The next question, I suppose, is, well, if Costa Rica is mandating vaccinations and it looks like maybe they're going in that direction, well, who does Costa Rica offer the vaccinations to? Well, according to our news sources, Costa Rica does offer the COVID-19 vaccines to their citizens, to residents, to migrants, but most tourists are not eligible for the vaccine. And Agustin Castro, the communications minister, wants to make it clear vaccine tourism does not exist in Costa Rica, nor are we promoting it. Okay, you got to wonder why he's saying that, and in case you don't know, hey, medical tourism is a big thing in Costa Rica, but they're making it clear. Medical tourism might be big and it might help Costa Rica, but don't come over here thinking that you're going to be on a vaccination tourism. We're not doing that. Okay, so anyway, those are some of the facts. Now, Costa Rica is talking about vaccinating their people. And at this point, we're only talking about the public sector. And the public sector is fairly large. You know, as we said earlier, we're talking about 325,000 people, most of them working in the tourism department. And tourism is a huge, huge industry for Costa Rica. And as I said at the very beginning, Costa Rica has done a lot of great things to really boost and kind of, push tourism. In other words, get tourism back because of this whole COVID mess, right? The pandemic just killed tourism. Well, they've done a lot of things to boost tourism. And, a couple of those things is that they've passed a new law to entice all of the gringos, entice foreigners to come and live in Costa Rica. So they really did some great things about that. If you haven't seen that video, make sure that you go to the link, watch that video on what they did to entice foreigners to come here to become residents. They want you to come here, spend your money, boost the economy. Well, they also passed a second law for digital nomads. We want you to come, spend your money. They're doing lots of things to boost tourism. Well, just for the regular everyday tourist that comes into the country. No, you don't have to show any proof of vaccination. You don't have to have any negative COVID test. Matter of fact, Costa Rica stated, we don't care where you come from, anywhere in the world, you can come to Costa Rica, enjoy our beautiful country, and we're not going to force you to be vaccinated, and we're not going to even force you to have any kind of test. What you do have to do is buy the health insurance if you're not vaccinated. So if you're vaccinated, great. You don't have to have that traveler's insurance. But if you're not vaccinated, simply fill out the health pass, buy the traveler's insurance, bam, you can enjoy Costa Rica. But everywhere you go, you got to wear a mask. They're checking your temperature. They're checking to make sure that you don't have any symptoms and that stuff. So the mask is a big, big thing in Costa Rica. If you're in the public, you got to have a mask. Outside in the open spaces, you don't. Most things are open back up. Matter of fact, it almost kind of looks back to normal. So that goes back to the final question. Okay, Alan, stop teasing us. Is Costa Rica, in your opinion, going to make it mandatory for tourists? From everything that I've seen, and I've talked to some people that are kind of up there, that know people that are up there, and they've got close relations. And they're telling me the same thing I'm about to tell you. They're saying, even though that they're making these mandates for healthcare people, for people that work in the public, they are probably not going to make it mandatory for all of their citizens. This one person I know stated, our people are not going to stand for that. There's people that don't want to be vaccinated, and I really don't believe Costa Rica is going to force them to be vaccinated. Yes, they're forcing people in the public, forcing people in the healthcare. That kind of makes sense. They're just trying to, stop the stop the COVID spread. That makes sense. Public healthcare. But I don't believe they're going to make the normal, everyday Joe, the average Tico in Costa Rica, I don't think they're going to force the vaccination. Sure, they're going to do everything they can to promote it. For example, one thing is, Costa Ricans love their football, their soccer. Well, they love to go to the game. Well, there's this special game real soon. It's usually kind of expensive to go, but they're making it very, very cheap, and they want everybody to go to the game. But guess what? You can only attend the game if you're vaccinated. Hey, there's a lot of countries doing things like that. In other words, they're just trying to encourage people to be vaccinated. If you're vaccinated, enjoy the game. If you're not, watch it from home. Okay, so anyway, back to the tourist. I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think Costa Rica is ever going to make it mandatory for the residents. They're doing everything they can to entice gringos, entice foreigners to come and live here, spend your money. They're doing all of that, and so I don't think they're going to turn around and say, but you got to be vaccinated. I don't think they're going to turn around and say, oh, to be a resident, you got to be vaccinated. You're a tourist, no, I don't think so. They would be shooting themselves in the foot in order to do that. So, my final answer, it's anybody's guess as to what any government would do. But I believe Costa Rica is smart enough, intelligent enough to say, hey, we're doing what we have to do to keep everyone safe. However, we're not going to force it on our people, and we're definitely not going to force it on our tourists because we want tourists, we want people to come here. Now, they didn't say that. That's my words, okay? That's my opinion. I think Costa Rica is a great place to be, but as always, we love to give you the cold, hard facts. We give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we want to give you the truth about it, and right now, I believe Costa Rica is a dang good place to enjoy your slice of paradise. All right, until next time, Pura Vida. All right, that's the Costa Rica Daily News segment. I hope you've enjoyed this story, and we're going to be telling you more as we get more updates. So make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that as we get more details, we'll let you know what's happening. So once again, we'll see you on the next Costa Rica Daily News segment.